Let's roll.
What are you drinking? You got an Omnibuild Yeti?
I'm not gonna confirm or deny what I'm drinking right now because it could get dramatic. It's got my name on it.
That's pretty tight.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, it was a Christmas gift to the whole company. So we like promoting the gear. Not that we sell it or make money on it. It's more of a cool thing we've talked about. We don't need to talk about it anymore because then it kind of loses its cool factor.
Yeah.
I did do a swag drop at Express Mart. I got a free salad. It was worth it.
How many hats did you turn over?
A lot. I filled 2 bags with hats and T-shirts and just shaplammed them. And they were like, wow, nice. And I was like, yeah, this is cool. I don't think they know about the podcast or listen to it. So they're kind of like, what? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. But
we might have to put it on like FM or AM radio to get their signal
I might
out
have
there.
to put that in the scanner, the emergency scanner. I hear that thing going in there. And but no, it's a good week. I didn't get all the swag out, so don't worry, it's coming. I promise. I still have a list that's going, but I did get some feedback, which has been fun. I talked about Benny Harris on the podcast, and we messaged a little bit back and forth, and it was pretty cool. You know, because he's like one of those guys when I talked about the accidental dump truck, which that's what it's called now, the accidental dump truck. So it's gone big. It's kind of like that guy where he's like kind of a myth and a legend in his own regard to what he does. And I look at Benny like that. So to get a compliment feels kind of good, you know? And I also I'm gonna drop some heat, man.
Watch out.
Yeah, watch out. Hide your wives, hide your children. Now, I was gonna say, I also talked to Abraham Telling, and I was thinking about that, and I'm like, I think that Abraham Telling could possibly be one of the best carpenters I've ever known in my life. He's next level. It's like alien technology. Even though I don't think he's an alien, I think he's found their technology in the woods on his farm as a kid and like learned carpentry through that. And he's just like such a cool guy. And he doesn't work for us, but he works with us a bit, and we're friends. And he's just a really good guy. And over the years, he's taught me a lot about quality control and ethics and being a parent and all those things. And like, you know, he messaged me too, and he's like, I like the podcast. And I was like, wow, thanks, dude. I was like, cool, I'm glad you're listening. And you know, it's like, it's kind of neat because I think that when you own your own company that does carpentry and construction work, and he does the same with his own company, it might be intimidating to pull them into the fold to work with. And I think that's one of the things that we've done really good at is work with other builders and keep the lines clean, you know. There's no, you know, secrets or disillusions that it's like he works for us or not. We work together. And we work together on some of his jobs, and we work together on some of mine, and it's totally amicable, and it's awesome. And Benny Harris, same way, you know. And Benny's helping Abraham right now on a job because he's kind of like one of the godfathers of building in Floyd. There's another guy, a couple guys. One of them is Skinner and Kenneth, and he's an old farmer dude, and I remember the first time he said hi to me in Floyd, and I was like, yeah. I tried to like keep it cool because like he's kind of cool and he's intimidating to me, at least, maybe not to other people, because he's like old school farmer dude, and it's like what I want to be one day, driving around with hay on the back of my truck and like delivering it to cows. But
One can only dream.
He wanted to go see one of my jobs, and I was like, wow. I was like, really? Okay. And he kind of joked around about working for me, which was a joke, but I got him a jacket. And, he gave me advice over the years, and people told me how Kenneth did things. And, I paid attention to that because, he had a successful company in Floyd and did good. And so, I take a lot of, I think I'm pretty humble in situations. Like, I probably have a little bit of an ego at times too, which I think just, that's tough. It's just
It's human nature.
being American, man.
Yeah, American nature too, for sure. Western.
But I think when you let go of that for a minute and you just listen to these people and what they got to offer, you're like, wow. Instead of like judging the fact that they use vinyl siding or they take a lot longer or they're strict or they're whatever, you say, what can I learn from what these guys did that made them successful, or gals, and I think that's just an important thing to kind of do in your career. One of the things that Abraham asked me was who my original partners were, because I think he listened to the podcast and knew I had a different business that didn't work and I had to leave, and I talked about it, paying my grandma back and all that. And I told him, and he's like, oh, that's crazy, and I don't know if he knew me back then when I had that business. But I look at that old business that failed as one of my greatest opportunities to learn of what I don't want to do in business. I mean, there were a few things I learned that I do want to do, and I don't want to like taint that whole situation with horror and tragedy and problems. But the truth is most of my learnings come from those tough situations. But no, it was kind of cool getting the feedback from different people. Been talking about bankers a little bit on my last, and I'm working through some situations with my bankers. I've got a huge job that's potentially on the horizon, that Luke is kind of spearheading, and I'm excited about that for him and us, and we have to include bankers in on it. And I've never done that before. So, I kind of showed my ass to my banker and felt bad. And then he kind of came in, and luckily he was like, let's talk about it. And we worked through it, but we're working through some things. And so one of my other bankers came in the other day, who they work in the same bank, which is Carter Bank in Floyd. And they've been great. I mean, honestly, they look really small, and you might think it's the only branch in the universe that's in Floyd, but I think they're pretty big, and they've been really good to us. It's made it really hard to leave, because lots of banks say, oh, you should come to us and we're gonna do blah blah blah, and we have an ATM machine, which Carter doesn't have an ATM machine. I'm like, I don't really use ATMs. Like I mean, I don't know if a lot of people do that or not, but I just have never really done much of it. Um, but I like going in there and them knowing who we are, and it's similar people for a long time, and you build a relationship with them. And I think that that's worth something. I think that building those long-term relationships in business is valuable, and then not abandoning them when things get tough, but trying to work through it to keep the relationship going. And, I think that for me, I might threaten, like I did with my bank, that I'm pulling my business because I don't get what I want. And that was the part of me showing my ass. But it led us to the hard conversation of him and her teaching me a little bit about what I was really asking for. A lot of times I think I know what I want, and it makes sense in my mind, but I'm not trained as a banker. I'm not trained in finance. I'm not trained in those things. And I might have gotten trained if I went to college for business or construction education or something like that. So, I showed my butt. We talked. He gave me a second chance. I gave him a third or fourth chance. And we talked it out. And I actually learned a lot about what I was actually asking for. And but what I was getting at was my other banker who I work with directly in Floyd, she came into the office to sign papers yesterday, and she said, "Did you ever listen to podcasts?" And I was like, "She saw my podcast." But she had no clue I had a podcast. She was literally just asking about podcasts in general. So I was like, I gotta be careful. Like, I don't know who's listening to it. I don't want to get too like centered on myself with it. I don't know why we started this or how. I know how because you did and you set this all up and you do a really good job, Dan. And lots of people are like, "Hey, does he do podcasts for other people?" I was like, "Yeah, he'll do podcasts for other people."
And I don't have to be in it.
Yeah. He doesn't have to be in it for 3 or 4 minutes per episode. But I was like, I don't know really why I'm doing it at times. I'm like, a lot of times it's like going to the gym. I went and worked out this morning, and 99% of the time before I go and work out, I'm like, oh God, I shouldn't go. I don't want to go. I want to sleep in. And I feel so much better when I go. And I'm like, okay, you got to push just a little bit to do it. And, the podcast for me, I think what I'm getting out of it is connection with the community. I have employees that are coming in and talking about it, and they drop little lines that maybe I said here or questions or comments about what I've said here, which I know they're watching. And I'm like, one of the things, well, what I'm getting at is I think it's cool, and I think right now it's worth it, and I enjoy it, and people are asking questions, and hopefully I'll do my best in answering them and also getting merch out. And at some point I do want to bring people on
Nice.
to talk. I think it'd be kind of cool. I don't know how that would happen yet because I don't even think about what we're going to do now before we start. But I think that's coming.
Nice. I'm excited for that.
A local podcast near you soon. Sign up to something. Follow it. So she came in, we signed paperwork, and then I told her I had a podcast, so she's like, "Oh, I'll watch," and I was like, "Oh, I feel weird promoting it like that, like maybe," but it's cool. She doesn't have to watch it. She can say she didn't, but I'm pretty stoked about it, and I'm stoked about the interaction I'm getting with people and all that stuff. And one of the things I talked about Abraham being just an insane carpenter and super knowledgeable and just spitting fire. My old boss, when I went, so in 2008, after I closed my first company, which was called Eco Solutions, and it was in Floyd County, but it was based out of Copper Hill. I went back up north where I'm from, which I did talk about. So the cat's out of the bag, which everybody already probably
Yankee
knows. Yeah. I don't know. People are like, "Would you fight with the South?" I was like, "If we ever go to war, I maybe." I'd probably run away. No, I don't know what I'd do. I'd probably fight with the South, but hopefully we'd be fighting with the North too against a bigger
robots.
danger. Yeah, robots or something like that.
Robots from the sky.
It's possible. AI is scary, man. But and I don't want to talk too much about AI because I think they're tracking me already for saying things about them.
Talk about legendary carpenters.
Yeah. So legendary carpenters, I talking about Abraham, I wanted to talk a little bit about our crew. I took Tuesday, and so Courtney and I have been working in the office a lot to kind of professionalize, work with some of the new people coming in that are working in project management at the office, different things like administration, bookkeeping. There's a lot of moving parts and pieces. So in tandem, I'd say since November, we've been working really closely to kind of get a situation going in the office that feels good and that works. And so we've changed our philosophy and our approach and our program and our job titles and everything like way too many times. But it was all meaningful and it made sense. It wasn't just out of control. We kind of worked with what we had. And I think that's one of the things that's unique about our company is we live in a rural area. We don't have resources like a city might have with a job pool of an insane amount of people. It's limited of who we have. So what people wise and what we have to do is we have to find ways to work with the people that we have. Like pull somebody out of dental record keeping and make them a project manager, over time. And I think it's one of the cool things that people like about it. So with all that, I'm not going to get too deep into the office things. I want to go back to the Carpenters because I want to give them a shout out, man. And but I took Tuesday. I said, Courtney, let's start dividing and conquering, our areas of the company. And her job description is business manager, and mine is Omnibuild manager, but more field too. And so um I'm trying to plug in more with the crews. And some of the things, like one of my foremen told me the other day, um, we had a meeting because we haven't had meetings with the crews lately, and that hit home for me. And I'm like, gosh, I've been so focused on this office, I got lost in it. And it wasn't bad. It wasn't like I was floundering and not doing anything or completing any tasks. It was just that I was so hyper focused on that I didn't forget about the people in the field, but I need to engage because it's important that they have access to all the things that I do in the office and feel like there's continuity between it, so that they're not just out there swinging hammers on -5 degree day on a roof, 14, 12 pitch, like something crazy, that they're also important, because they are. It doesn't work without them. I mean, we're all important and in the company structure, and that's how we try to do it. And that's part of the reason why people like working here. So I spent the day Tuesday going to every job I can hit, just looking, checking in with the subs, checking in with the crews. And I went out to a job in Indian Valley, which is hilarious because it's near Abraham's house, so he can kind of see it. But it was interesting because I was blown away at how good and how difficult a job that was framing. And I've looked at the plans and I read lots of plans, but over the years I have moved more out of the field and more into the office, and we have very skilled people in the field and very skilled people in the office, but I'm more reading 2D drawings now than I am hands-on in the field. And I climbed up and I looked at that house and I'm like, this is pretty complex. But I had no clue of the complexity until I climbed up into the rafters and was like, wow. And they nailed it. I mean, Justin and Ian, Cameron, Sean, Chris, Cyrus, um, they just nailed that job, man. They're just doing a great job. They have taken command of their ship. It's like, you know, we are a fleet of ships and there's like the command ship that's in the middle. And then we have all these little like ships around us that like have tasks and do super intense things and go into battle, and we kind of support them and we're like, here's another tool for the battle, and they're like, oh, let's go, and then we're like, oh god, it was a rough day, and we try to pull together. But me not connecting to them, I don't really see enough of what it is that they're doing on a day-to-day basis, and I need to start doing that a lot more. I need to engage with them because they're the ones pulling off all this stuff that we're prepping in the office. And I think that in order to do that cleanly, it's regular visits and connecting with that side of the company. I think it gets lost at times. And I see how when you get too far down the rabbit hole, I could have easily stayed in the office for the rest of my career and hardly connected with the crews. And I think that would have been pretty dangerous. I think it's mutiny time. I think it's like all sorts of things you want to call it, and so was really happy to do that and felt good about it. Talked to customers. It was exciting. And I dropped off some merch to one of my favorite customers, my buddy. We've been building his house for a while, and we're kind of doing it incrementally. We started the siding. I dropped the sweatshirt off to him and his wife, and it's just cool. They're awesome, and they have such a good family, and they have a huge family, and their family pictures needs like the widest lens available because it's big. But like I look at them and I'm like, they've done a great job, man. They're all friends and they hang out and they do things, and they built this really cool house basically for their family to come and hang out. And I'm like, that's what I want. I want my kids to want to come back and hang out and build something cool, that I can afford, that they can come and want to be at. And that's what I see happening there, and I was like, this is a really cool thing. And to be a part of that and then go back and connect and say, what are the things that are important to you that need to be done and fixed as the owner, and say, yep, we'll get on that. There's something powerful about that. I mean, Spencer and Luke and Olivia and Matt and Pace and, the different project managers, Haley, they can all do that. But something that comes from the owner, I think, feels a little bit different. And it's an awkward situation for me to be at in times because I don't want to feel like I'm more than any of those people. But I put myself in a situation to be at the top of the mountain, which, like I've said in the past, all the shit rolls downhill. So most of the time it's my fault. There's something that powerful about it when I go into a meeting with them or with the client, and able to address a situation, and I'm not saying I do it better or anything. It's just a different type of zone, so, I think going out there and seeing what Justin and Miller pulled off, I'm like, wow, like I couldn't do what they did. And I'm not afraid to admit that I could do math and I can figure out, I've built tons of stuff, but right now, spending 8 years more in the management side, I'm not in the same zone they are anymore. I would take me a lot longer to figure out how to frame that house, and they just crushed it. And it's exciting, we have a big year coming up. And so seeing that and seeing the way that the team pulled together, because a lot of it starts with management, but a lot of it is the team approach. And like, how's your team doing? Because if you're only as strong as your weakest link, I think that's how the saying goes. Is that?
Yeah, that's definitely the saying.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of truth to that, and so we have a new kid that started working out there, and he's excited. I saw him at dinner. I went and picked up Mexican last night and for dinner for me and Esma, because Rye's out of town, so we're rolling solo. He was excited to say hi, and I was excited that he said hi, and I was like, that's cool. Like, our connection right there was kind of neat, and we were able to I was able to see that he was excited about being a part of the team. And I was like, I want to honor that and nurture that so that he wants to stick around, So, yeah, I think there's an animal living in the ceiling in here. So if you hear it, so we're going to deal with that real soon.
Well, I think it's great that you were able to take a whole day out of your week to go visit a bunch of job sites and see the crew with the boots on the ground, and probably means a lot to those guys to see you out there.
Yeah.
Means a lot to the clients, and also it gives you a holistic view of how everything's going, because as much as the person that picks up paint is important to the person that's signing the contract or getting the contract signed with the client,
Yeah.
the work is done by the people in the field, and that work is what we photograph. It's what the client lives in. And so it's what really represents the finished product, but the experience that you guys offer as project managers and as a construction management company, you're able to have this full approach that gives a quality experience from signing contract, breaking ground to completing a project. And that also gives your crews the ability to take ownership over what they're building.
Yeah.
And gives you the opportunity to have the eagle eye view, but it's also really cool to be able to still have time to go in the field, not be locked to your desk, not be locked to looking at contracts all the time.
It's critically important. It's really easy to get stuck in a routine, and trying to break out of it is freeing at times and stressful at times. And, I was riding to a job we're doing at Claytor Lake, which is we're taking the next step on that job, which I'm super pumped, man. This is a good week for like signing contracts and getting cool work going, and but I was riding down the lake and we were talking about some of the stuff on jobs and stuff, and I was like, everybody there is a representation of us. Not like us as in me and this person driving, as a company. So down to the newest, what can be considered lowest person on the totem pole. I hate that terminology, but that's kind of what it is. They need to look at the job like the same way we might. Like, does this need to be cleaned, or does a door need to be shut, or does a window need to be shut? And I say that a lot. And I'm like, treat this job like it's your job, like at your house. So when you leave, is there mud on the floor that you need to sweep up, or is there one thing you can finish that'll just make it so much better? Because you don't know if the client's going to come on Saturday with their family, and the last thing they want to do is see a window open with rain pouring in, or a huge mess, or anything like that. It just makes it not feel like you care about their job. And that's what we need to try and do. And it might take an extra hour, which sometimes feels like a lot at the end of a long workday, but peace of mind is a great thing. And going home being like, wow, they're going to be stoked to show up at that job, and what I try to tell the company is we do as much as we can for everybody. And this year I'm really going to try and put that to the test. Like, I want to do as much as I can for my employees. And historically we've paid close to 5 weeks off, 2 weeks paid, 5-ish holiday paid off, and then we shut down for 2 weeks at winter and pay for it off. And then we do a huge raffle that is tens of thousands of dollars, and so I feel like we have done a lot to show our appreciation, but we always want to try and do as much as we can, and I'm really this year, I'm really trying to prioritize that, talk to my accountant about it, talk to Courtney about it, because I really want to give back to the people that are all part of this, and show that appreciation so that they feel appreciation for the job they're working on. It's tough. I talked to other builders like years ago. I had somebody come in for a job interview, and I do this a lot, and I don't do it as much anymore. And the only reason I don't do it as much is because I kind of cut my teeth and have asked a lot of the questions I've needed answers to. And so there's not a lot of new ones that come up, and they do. And when they do, I ask questions. But for years, I would call other building contractors that I've worked with or known or been friends with, and ask them, what do you pay a foreman? So that I'm in line with what they're doing and thinking about it clearly, because I have no way to judge that. And I might be paying way too much or way too little or just right or whatever. And I've been pretty surprised at what some of the rates were, and I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors around that, of how people claim that they treat people that work there and different things like that. But I think when the rubber meets the road, I think we do a pretty good job by our people and honor what they do and acknowledge it. And a lot of times that comes through money. and that's what we're all here for at the end of the day. People are working as hard as they can to build the house of their dreams or remodel or do whatever. And then people are working for me to make their dreams come true based on the money they've made and their dreams. And then the people that work here are doing it at the end to provide for their family to make their dreams come true as well. And so it's a whole kind of situation that at the end of the day kind of goes back to that. You got to make money and you got to be able to survive in this world that's changing all the time. And we want to make it so that people can enjoy, their life and it's not as stressful. And it might start out that way. Justin Miller came to us as a line welder and he's done a lot of different things. He's a super talented guy. I mean, he's the salt of the earth. He's kind of like got a good poker face. He doesn't smile that much, but I've seen it a few times. Nice smile. He's a great guy. I love him to death. And, but he's a prime example. I mean, I wouldn't call him a builder, and I wasn't a builder either when I started Omnibuild, so I don't want to get it wrong. I was an electrician, and so we've come from different backgrounds, but we've learned together, and he's moved up to being like a very important person in the company and doing what I think fairly well, I hope, and we've helped him with projects, and I think that's what it's all about, is watching us grow, and it's exciting, to see that. We are bringing in a new project manager, which I am super excited about, and one of the I think the things that intrigued this person was our sense of family and partnership and togetherness in the company, and a lot of the people that have worked here, we've done work efforts to help them with their place. We're helping a few people this year, like whether we're framing or doing whatever. And this person that's coming on knows about that, and we've talked about it. And it was one of the incentives that they're like, I want to be a part of that. Like, send a bunch of people to help me build my house. That's
huge.
It's huge. Yeah, I think it is. And I talked last week about going to the farm for breakfast, which I'm going after this. I can't wait because if
Waffle
you
Day?
ever, it's funny because I told Randy, I was like, yeah, I talked about eating breakfast at the on the podcast at the farm. She's like, well, I hope a lot of people don't show up or something, think they're going to get breakfast. I'm like, no. But if you ever get invited for breakfast, please go because you won't regret it. It is so good.
Farm fresh.
Oh, God. I can't wait to eat there
Old
this morning.
Family recipes.
Yeah, we do breakfast every Friday. And then sometimes I'm like, man, I could be doing so many other things, but I'm like, that is probably one of the most important things that I want to do. I want to go there because they taught me so much, and they're very humble about it and like, you've done it and this and that, but through my experiences of working on that farm, staying on that farm, creating a small business together, the lessons that they have taught me about responsibility and finances and things like that, I owe it to me and them to make that hour to 2 hours to have breakfast. It's so freaking important. I mean, they are like some of the most important people in my life, and so talking about what led us to the farm talk?
Well, I think you maybe got hungry, but
Oh yeah.
we were talking about Miller and
Yes.
his growth in the company
And bringing in new people
bringing
and
in new
things like
people.
that.
Yeah.
Creating a place where people want to come and work and that they have the ability to grow into a new position in their life that benefits them and us, as a company, and this person that's coming in and being able to say, yeah, we're going to help you build your house, and how excited they were about that. I get a lot out of that. I think the company does. A tree that works for us or worked for us. I don't know. She might still be on payroll. She's one of my best friends in the whole world. Um, we went and helped her with her house, which was an extenuating circumstance because she wanted to move her dad in and she needed room for her brother's kids and stuff like that. So we're like, she put the call out, then we responded. And it felt good just in general to help with the project. But I'll tell you what felt like the best was the bond it created with the crew. When people said, "Wow, that was great. Thank you." You know, and it's interesting. I've kind of gone this thing where I tell people, I say, I could pay you guys to all work, but if you want to donate your time, you can do that too. And I'm not going to tell anyone who charges and who doesn't, you know, to make it a weird thing because some people can't donate a day. They need it because they have a college education they need to pay for or a mortgage or cheerleading camp for their kids or whatever it might be, you know, and I understand that. And I want them to not miss out on an opportunity that is cool to work together at trees on the side of a mountain. That's super crazy job. Um, where there's that camaraderie of people working together. I don't want them to miss that opportunity because they can't afford to work for free for a day. You know, so I leave it out there. And, you know, it's been a really cool thing to see that bond that it creates with the crew. And I think that every business should find a way to do that. You know, if you're a food business, like cater someone's birthday party. Like, but like ask people to be a part of it, you know, and try to build that sense of community in your business because you'd be surprised at how much you get out of it. You know, one of the things that I think is really cool, like Expressmart, I've talked about them a few times. It's like they have a billboard outside and they acknowledge things on that billboard in the community and for the people that work there and stuff. And I think it's cool when you drive by and it feels good. And you're like, oh, it's a community business,
Mhm.
you know? And I think living in Floyd, that's what it's shown me is like the power of community because I've lived all over and more urban areas. And I'll tell you, it really lacks that. You know, it really does. I mean, it's like I'll probably get in trouble, you know, for saying some of these things. So I got to be a little careful. But, you know, I have family up north, you know, and I love them dearly. And I would literally do anything for them. And I think they know that. And I think they would do anything for me. But I talk to them a lot and they tell me stories about shoveling driveways and no help and this and that. And, you know, it's crazy to me because I feel like down here in Floyd, I know 50 people right now I can call that'll help me. And I love that sense of community. And I feel like when I go up north, you don't necessarily even and that's not just north, that's where I go. It's an urban area. You might not know your neighbor at all. You might not know their name. You might because you Googled them or whatever you did, Yahooed them or Facebooked, you know. So you might know their name because you're curious, but like you might not ask them for an egg if you need it because I don't know why. There's something powerful about connection and taking that leap of faith and trying it because you don't know what door you might open. Like, you might not want to ask your neighbor for an egg, but asking them for that egg might open a door to who knows what. Might not, but I'm going to try every time. That's why when I go to New York City and places like that, I say hi to lots of people. And they're like, whoa. And I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, I thought that was nice. Because, like, I think it's kind of weird. I think people are so fascinated with their phones and they live in the box. They don't even want to call. Like, they don't even want to make phone calls. They would rather text. I have some friends that voicemail says, "This must be so important that you're calling, but I don't take phone calls, so don't even leave a message because I won't listen and text me."
Ooh.
And I'm like, dude, what? I was like, you don't talk anymore? Like there's something powerful about a conversation. And that's what I love about living here. You know, somebody once told me that Floyd was the land of misfits. And it's kind of funny because there's a lot of people here that'll probably be like, that's not true, blah, blah, blah. But I think what they meant to say is it's a place where we don't fit in regular society because we don't want to. We don't want to not know our neighbor. We don't want to go to the grocery store and not know a single person. It is annoying sometimes when you have to go to Food Line and you need to talk to like 35 people because you just need a stick of butter. But there's also something that is wholesome about it and kind of cool about it as well, you know. And so, you know, it's a double-edged sword. I think it's one of the reasons I love, and that's how I've kind of positioned Omnibuild to be, and with Abel and our morals and all those things. I need to sit up because it's like making me look. I did work out this morning, so I
You look
might
good, man.
my jaws are sized, bro. You know. Anyway, I love Floyd and I love all that stuff, but I want to talk about Jawser size.
Okay.
Dude, we talked about Jawser size on here and trying to like, you know, get a sponsor and all that. It's like flooding all of my accounts now.
Jaws
If I go on Instagram, it's like Jawser size everything. Which I didn't, it was kind of a joke. I didn't really know much about Jawser size, but now I know a lot.
Well, they heard you say you're going to do it for a whole podcast. Just Jawser size ASMR.
Dude, you know, look it up, Omnibuild, and send me a Jawser size. I'll do it on the podcast.
With an Omnibuild logo, though.
Yeah. And they got to wear an Omnibuild hat.
Yeah.
But like, it's kind of weird how that happens. I mean, I didn't type Jawser size anywhere, but
If you don't know we're being tracked by now, then
I didn't know until now.
yeah, welcome to the new world of tech surveillance. It's all meant in the completely benevolent guise of getting you what you want specifically.
Yeah, I guess I might want it. Or I guess maybe it makes me think I want it.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, that probably doesn't work.
But
and
if you're
it's annoying.
sarcastic and you're saying things, you're just going to get advertised things.
Sweet. I got to be careful what I talk about.
Yeah, who would have thought? But you're right, though. So the southern hospitality of Floyd is real.
Yeah.
And I haven't lived in very many southern places, and I never imagined living in the South.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from New York. I've lived in a lot of different places across the country and traveled the world. And when Rita said, you know, maybe we should move to Floyd during the pandemic, I was like, moved to a one-stoplight town?
Yeah.
In Podunk, Virginia. That's kind of what went through my mind.
Yeah.
I had visited before, but I hadn't like absorbed any of that culture or community. I sort of like just saw it for what at face value of what it was physically in the geographic location.
Yep.
I didn't get to absorb the beauty as much as I should have because I was jet lagged and things like that.
Sure.
But when we moved here, even though I was still sort of like unsure, I trusted her and I trusted you and Rye and everybody that was saying it was going to be a good transition. And immediately when we got here, the first day, I was like relieved.
Yeah.
And even though my home where I lived in California was, 10 feet away from the next home and my neighbors were close in proximity, we did not get along. We did not talk. We sort of avoided each other. And now where we live now on the farm, our nearest neighbor is not a half a mile or so away, and then downriver, another mile away. And then the whole street is like 2 miles, and I've never been closer with my neighbors than now, even though they're all kind of farther away. They're not close in proximity. We walk together. We have breakfast together. We play board games. We have family events and holidays, and it's
cool.
like special. And
It's super cool.
I've been searching for community my whole life, like traveling the world, living in California, thinking the bohemian life would sort of help me find it. And then actually it's pretty real here.
Yeah.
And it's not pretentious or full of ego and like trying to sell you an online course. It's like actually just people that are real, and it's cool.
We're smaller and we have to rely on each other more. Where in a place where you have lots of options, that's what you do. And you get into the rhythm and you watch different things online that says get lots of prices and do lots of this and that. You have to learn to trust who you're working with because you don't have as many options. I think there's so many different pieces and parts of that, and I see it over and over. We built this guy, Tim Mallard's house. He's a man. He is such a cool guy, and we become friends. And in snowstorms, I see him post, hey, if you get stuck in the snow, message me and I'll pull you out. I'm like, how cool is that? Like, I connected him up with Plenty when he got here, which is our local food bank, which honestly, like, we need to talk about that a lot more sometime. And he helped get him a van and is delivering food, and it's just a cool thing to see people get excited about and part of, and I talked about Plenty. We have a local food bank here, and we built the original building, and it was awesome. And we did some donation on it, which felt really good. Um, and we do help them to this day. But they grow food on their farm for the food bank. They take donations too, and they put together bags of food, and it is the coolest thing ever. It's a community center. It's not just like drab hobum, like, come get a box of food. It's like go down to a beautiful place, maybe have some soup, hang out on the creek, and like get a bag of food because you need it. I think it's such a cool thing. And like I hope the universe models something off of this. Now, you might live in an area where you can't grow food, but work with local farmers, find different ways. I think their model is one of the coolest things I've seen. And I'm super glad to be a part of what I am there, and which isn't a lot, but I'm a little part of it, and I think that's what's cool about community. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Floyd's awesome. I think it's great. And speaking of Floyd, I want to shout out the Buffaloes, baby. Buffalo. Dude, the Floyd boys won. And now they're in the regional championship game tonight, which I know you won't hear this, but I'll be going down there with my daughter and her friend and giving some love to Floyd. I mean, it's an hour drive, but it is amazing to see how many people make that drive to watch that game.
It's cool.
And then we all kind of like look at each other and figure out where everyone's sitting. And then we sit around all sorts of people we don't know yet. We know we're from Floyd. At least we think we are. And then we talk and we create this bond and cheer for our local team. And it's been awesome. And I'll thank my daughter, Esma, for getting me into it because she's a cheerleader. And that's why I've been going to the games. And so I've gotten kind of hooked. And I love that she does it. And it's fun to watch her be a part of something and do that. And then it's fun to watch the boys and the girls play. And the girls did really good too. And the coaching, Ross Sneed and Brian Harmon, they're just awesome. They're very good.
Yeah. And you were saying that the facilities over there in the gym are really nice.
Where we're going?
Or the local one in Floyd.
Yeah. It is nice. Floyd, so Floyd is not large enough, I guess, to host some of these regional games. So Floyd Gym is awesome. They have like a cool light show that they put on when the players come out. And I feel like
That's
I'm at the
sick.
pros. I've never been to a pro game, but I'm like, this might be what it feels like to be at a pro game because there's like lights and music and they're doing special handshakes. And I'm like, oh, I kind of want to learn a special handshake. And I don't even know how to like congratulate. I put my hand out to shake it, and I think they want to do a secret dab or something, and I don't know how to do that. So might watch a YouTube video before I go tonight because I'm gonna be throwing some high fives.
You got to watch a TikTok video to get good at those, I think.
I guess, yeah. I don't have TikTok. I know somebody that does, though. It's super cool. We've been going down to Franklin County right now because they have a huge auditorium. And it feels like even more pro-like because it's way high. And I want to shout out the third man or the sixth man. Sorry, I cut you in half, bro. But the sixth man is a local ish crew that videos the games and posts about them. So the games I haven't been able to go to or keeping up with the other teams, it's been awesome. I'm like, I can't believe this person does this because they are so passionate about it, And I'm gonna try to remember to bring him some hats tonight.
Oh yeah.
Gunner freaking Jones, man, because I just think it's awesome. To me, that is the thing that I get most excited about is watching somebody like do something like that, dedicate time of their life on the side to like create this awesome channel that's super professional and document, and like my buddy Mike bought pizza for the entire kids section, or they call it what do they call it? The student section at the game, the last home game. And they passed around like 50 boxes of pizza. And I'm like, how cool is that? I'm like, it's just like a really cool thing for the kids, man, to bond and watching them cheer together and like be emotional about the game. It's what brings people together. And that's why I wish Omnibuild was like a sport and we could like go and like conquer something amazing, which we're actually about to do. I wanted to actually talk about that real quick, but to see that excitement about achieving a task and like high-fiving and getting emotional about it, it's kind of cool. I want to bring that into construction a little more. But we have a job. I talked a little bit about it. I had a tough job. We had a problem. We faced it. Um, then it got fast tracked, and we're knocking this whole thing out in like a week and a half. And it's a major job. I mean, it's like a month-long job, I would say normally. Like if somebody was like, "Can you do this?" I'd say, "Yeah, it'll take a month." We're knocking it out in probably 10 days, and we're working through the weekend on it. And I want to say, like straight up, those people, it's the people that are doing it that is why it's happening, obviously, but it's their attitude about it. They're like, it's funny when I approach there's two foremen, Graham and Orion working on it, and they're awesome. And there's a bunch of people with them. Um, and when I had a talk with Graham and Orion, they knew it was serious, and immediately they were like, their whole demeanor changed, and they're like, "We're ready. Let's go." And they have been putting a hurting on it, a good hurting, knocking it out, getting it taken care of, and we're fixing the problem, and we're paying for it, and that's what I talked about with the savings, you know, um, it's we can handle it financially. It doesn't feel great, but it feels great that we're gonna make it right, and that the crew is, like, going full DEFCON on it to make it happen to get through it, and to me, that's a sign of true team pulling together. Not the company true team, our team, that's true. But, I have a lotta good feelings about that.
Yeah, because you've worked so hard to get your company to a place where you're providing this experience for people and they have an expectation of what's going to be finished. And when you have to face a challenge where it's going to cut into your earnings and maybe become a loss, you've got to call your team together to be able to move through that. And if you don't fix it,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to put it behind you and feel better. It'll be always be a sore thumb, and you'll just be thinking about this relationship that's soured or a bad review that's going to never go away. And you're able to, fix that with your team that actually cares and wants to put extra time in,
Yeah.
and with your ability to like have the foresight
Yeah.
to have your coffers full enough to deal with expensive problems.
Yeah. Being able to deal with your problems with a clear mind, and sometimes the clear mind comes from saving for problems, comes from the ability to take yourself outside of the problem and like view it from the side so that you're not just all up in it and like stressed out about it is what I think makes it go okay. And then having a team behind you, and like we're doing next week, one of the things that Justin Miller and Ian said to me was, I think one of the things lacking is we haven't had our company meetings. We have office meetings. The crews have some kind of meetings, but we haven't like been bringing the crews in like we normally do. So we are doing that next week on Thursday, and we're getting pizza, and I'm pretty stoked. It's going to be like 50 people in the office, which is a lot. It's a little bit overwhelming, but I think the truth is that I'm hoping that we can all high five because we pulled that job off.
At the same time?
It might be such a powerful thing. It could create like a black hole. So I don't know if we're going to do it at the same time, but like it might be like a chain reaction. So I don't want to like mess with the Earth's axis or anything like that.
And not again.
Yeah. But I want to talk real quick too about one other tough thing that we went through. I think like construction, it's so common to have difficult times because there's things called construction fatigue. That is normal. It happens when you're doing a construction job. It could happen in the first week, first month, year, where it's like, I'm just tired of construction on my property, on my project. It's the client that experiences it and us. And there could be a moment that just is so tough that it's like, it could create like stress on the job between the company and the client. And those stresses could turn to resentments. They could turn to an emotional drain that you carry for too long. And we had a job that we completed about 2 years ago. And my last few meetings were difficult. And I did my best. It was a rough time for me. My dad was in a really bad situation, was dying, which he's kind of come back together. I was losing project managers and getting new ones, and there was a lot of distance. It was just a really hard time. And I dropped the ball a little bit on the job of communication. We weren't not doing the job and not pushing and not meeting deadlines, but there was a point where I probably could have communicated a little bit more about what was going on, because then the customer would have understood a little bit better and maybe been a little bit more understanding, and maybe not. Maybe they weren't able to, and it's okay. And I could easily let that situation burn a hole in me and feel resentful and carry it. And there's even been some communication afterwards that was difficult, but they had a leak in their roof um the other day, and I got an email. And I think it's really easy when you're getting sometimes 300 emails a day to like subconsciously, consciously like scroll past that email and be like, yeah, our warranty has lapsed on the job because Virginia law is 1 year. And, or I'm just not going to open that because I didn't like how it ended, or I didn't like what that person said to me or how they felt, and not totally knowing the truth of why they said that or how they really felt. And making my own judgment and speculation of all that and building this story in my mind, and not prioritize it. But I begrudgingly, because I did scroll past it, I was like, ugh. And I remember right away being like, I don't want to look. And I said, no, I gotta look, because that's one of those things that keeps you up at night, that drives you to like drinking too much or doing something you shouldn't too much, and maybe getting sick, lots of different things. And so I went back, I opened the email, and I realized it was a roof leak. And immediately my mind goes to, how is it their fault? Which is, I think, just natural because of how the world is. But it's like what you do with that thought. And I've talked about this before. And so I said, okay, well, let me look at the roofing contract, which luckily we have good records. And so I went in and found the roofing contract, and it says 10-year warranty. And I don't work with that roofer anymore. So I was worried about whether or not he was going to respond and honor his contract. And he didn't respond. So I ended up having to go around him to somebody else in the company, and they did. And they said, you're absolutely right. He is under warranty. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And so they sent somebody up in less than a week, and one of our people went up to make sure that everything was done right, and they felt supported. And I stayed in touch with the client, and that ended amazing. He sent a nice message the other day and said thank you for prioritizing it. And you know what happened? A lot of my speculation and my guilt and my resentment and my fear kind of subsided. And I was like, okay, I think maybe it's going to be okay. And it's a huge relief. And I realized like how much that affected my inside of I've been carrying for 2 years, does this person hate me? You know, and then realized that they just sent a nice email, and I realized how much that opened up. And I was like, well, they don't hate me. They may not like love me and invite me to their birthday party, but I can see them at Food Line or wherever we might run into each other and then go up and shake their hand and be okay. And there's something I learned in that no matter how bad it gets, working through it is a lot easier than avoiding it.
Open that email.
Shaplamus. So, I say a lot of weird words, and it's funny because my old boss and out of Connecticut, we worked all over in electrical, Tom Liguori. He's a freaking man, dude. He might bring tears in my eyes talking about him because he's around my age and he's a wizard. We used to call it wizardry. He is the best electrician, hands down, in the universe. He's like Abraham level, extraterrestrial knowledge of electrical and the universe. He's really into the universe. So maybe he is an actual alien.
An alien wizard.
He taught me so much. And I don't need to get into it now, but I want to give him a shout out. Tom Liguori, you're the man, dude. And I owe you a VIG. He knows what that means. So he taught me lots of weird words and phrases and things to say. Like, I actually thought the other night that he taught me punching the job in the face.
Whoa, origin story.
Yeah. So we might talk about that more next time, because that experience was pretty rich and I learned a lot. And I almost didn't come back to Floyd when I went up there to work because I got so caught up in the money making and the lifestyle that I almost forgot about Floyd. And then I got punched in the face, literally, and remembered Floyd and came home. So I'll talk about that next time. So I appreciate y'all coming and listening and giving some feedback and reaching out to me. And don't hesitate. If you want to hear something or you don't like something I said or want to correct me, please do. Whether it's a personal text, phone call, email, comment online, whatever it is. But this is for all of us. This podcast is for all of us, and I want it to feel that way. So thank you. I'm going to go have breakfast at the farm now.
Nice. Enjoy it. And if you've made it this far, be a friend, subscribe, like, follow, and share it with somebody who, knows Matt. Shaplam.
Get some. See ya.
Later.